Welcome back to Mystara for the last of the city videos for a while, mainly because Sundsvall was a pain in the neck to research. Unlike previous cities, which heap detail upon detail, Sundsvall gets about a page of rather generic descriptions and little in the way of actual content. So when that happens, you head over to the vaults and see if someone else has found a lost cache of forgotten lore. I finally found a whole host of Sundsvall lore on Obsidian Portal's page, most of which I would surmise isn't canon, but since they took the time to write it out, this will be their time to shine. I'm Mr. Welch, and today we're headed to the city built by magic, Sundsvall. That's Sundsvall, Alphatia, not Sundsvall, Sweden. Other than the name, they don't seem to share anything. Though maybe somebody at TSR went to Sundsvall, Sweden and really liked it. It is quite pretty. Sundsvall sits in the middle of the continent of Alphatia in the Imperial Kingdom of Vertalock. By law, the Empress must be a king or a queen, so a section of the nation was created specifically for the Empress to rule, even though its actual governing is delegated to subordinates. The city of 500,000 nestles on the Green Lake River, which is a bit of a continuity problem between the city map and the national map, as the river is to the west in the city map, but to the north in the national map. Minor issue, but I had to point it out. The city consists of around 2,000 estates, with each estate holding about 250 people. By law, landowners must buy entire blocks, but how they develop them is left to the owner. So unless the landowner is developing the entire block, much of Sundsvall is sublet to tenants and business owners. The city is laid out like a spider web, with the Imperial Palace dead in the middle. It is massive in scope, with the entire compound taking up a full 9 city blocks. Thousands of people live in the compound, most of them slaves, with the highest levels of government operations taking place inside its walls. Here you will find multiple landing strips for up to a dozen airships, and a fortress containing the Emperor's personal bodyguard. It's not a tourist attraction. If you don't have an invitation to visit, you will be turned away at the gates. Just outside the palace, you will find the Aerodrome, which can handle dozens of airships. This is where most of the wizards of Sundsvall park their transports, with a few entrepreneurial types running a shuttle service between all points of the Alphatian Empire. The most powerful nobles keep their airships on their own private estates, meaning the airships here are owned by minor but wealthy nobles. Other airships are owned by people who live outside the capital but maintain a small estate inside of Sundsvall. Of special note, a large airship run by the Kingdom of Gaiety runs tourists to the island on a daily basis. The University of Sundsvall, to the southwest of the palace, takes up an entire city block and houses thousands of arcane students. They live outside the university, mostly in a residential block. The university teaches all sorts of arcane studies to its students, though it is not as prestigious as the Great School of Magic, as the most powerful wizards prefer to tutor their children in their own kingdom. This means the students are either legacies from powerful families or the children of minor nobles looking for a thorough education. While the school is dedicated to magical studies, it does have some classes that specialize in fields such as theology and natural sciences. Across from the university is the block known as University City. Here's where most of the students are housed, as well as a large number of support industries, as well as taverns and shops. This is where students buy books and supplies, along with food and other staples. On holidays and weekends, the block can get a little rowdy as the students cut loose, but the threat of expulsion keeps them largely in check, as most of the faculty live here as well. To the displeasure of the university, this is also where you can purchase cheat sheets and other unethical aids in your studies. The Artisan Square is owned by an anonymous buyer who has declared this block dedicated to supporting the arts. Every morning, hundreds of bards, poets, painters, singers, musicians, and similar set up their booths and get to creating art. The masses tend to flock to this district on weekend and enjoy the various shows they're put on for their entertainment. Art is sold, commissions are taken, and hats are passed across the block to the gathered crowd. At night, everyone tears down their booths and leaves, as the park has to be cleared at dark for the slaves to clean up. A curiosity is found in the eastern section of the city, as a wizard sworn to the Sphere of Time has created possibly the largest magic item in all of Alphatia. At the top of his tower is a Chime of Time, which doles out accurately every hour. Rather than the typical 3-foot variety, this is a massive 25-foot across variety, and it can be heard over a mile away. There have been some noise complaints, but few are going to cross a wizard on the path to immortality. So the chime is going nowhere. Scattered across the city are the fire slayers. Because of the tightly packed nature of many of the poorer neighborhoods, fire is a serious concern to the Alphatians. The solution was to place wizards in various sections of the city, all with spells prepared to combat fires when they happen. The slayers will teleport to the scene of a fire and use spells like Cone of Cold or create water to quench the blaze. Time is of the essence, because if a fire spreads too fast, it can easily overwhelm the number of fire slayers available. As you can expect, arson is heavily punished in Sundsvall. The pits are considered the worst parts of Sundsvall, where businesses of varying degrees of questionable legality can be found. The happenings of the pits are allowed to happen by the owners of the various blocks, either through neglect or design. Zonga dens are found here in abundance, as well as gambling dens, brothels, and fighting pits. Nobles come to the pits for adventures or to feed a habit, something the businesses of the pits are more than happy to supply. It is constantly suggested that something has to be done about the pits, but the owners are both connected and wealthy and have stopped any reforms that would hurt their business. The Jangles are the middle-class section of Sundsvall. This is where most of the business in the capital is conducted. Shops and markets abound. Well-maintained apartments and tenements house tens of thousands of citizens. The area is well patrolled during the day, and any type of legal good or service can be found in the twisting streets of the Jangles. At night, people head to the numerous drinking holes or music halls for entertainment. It is a common location for nobility who want to slum it, but aren't willing to risk the pits. The Hardball Arena is just to the east of the Imperial Palace, and this massive structure can hold up to 50,000 fans for local teams. It is one of the few places that nobles and commoners will mingle openly, and around the arena is all sorts of cheap vendors and food kiosks. On the weekends, when games are normally held, the arena is standing room only, and tickets are scalped outside of it. When tournaments or playoffs are held, the block is swarmed with tourists, and tickets will sell out months in advance. The Sundsvall docks are found obviously at the river, to the north or west depending on which map you use. Here, boats come up the Green Lake River from the sea or down the two feeder rivers to the north to unload cargo. There is a bit of a power struggle at the docks between various guilds who represent different methods to unload ships. The primary guilds include gnomes who use mechanical constructs, necromancers who save money with undead servants, as well as the unions that use the more expensive but also more reliable longshoremen. The southeast section of Sundsvall is known as Fire City due to the large and cramped buildings found there. It is one of the most populated areas in Sundsvall, with tenements reaching 20 stories tall and supported by magic to maintain their structural integrity. It gets its name from the danger that arson and accidental fires present. A single blaze can spread quickly and overwhelm the abilities of the fire slayers. The area is also rife with crime because of the large population, and intelligent monsters like to hunt their prey in the crowded blocks. Near the Artisan Square, you will find the Silk Spider Market. This exclusive area is closed to the commoners. Only nobles and known servants are allowed in. Silk merchants and shops display various elaborate pieces of clothing made from spider silk, as well as offering bulk purchases of the fabric. Prices are obviously high, running 10 times that of regular silk. Tailors take special orders that can run into the tens of thousands of gold pieces, but for nobility looking to one-up their political rivals in court, it's worth every copper. The Arcane Forge is a block-sized collection of artificers, smiths, and merchants that specialize in the construction of magical items for sale. Almost all the items sold are made on commission. Unlike Glantry's markets, putting magic items out for sale to commoners is frowned upon. Much of the work here is specialty magical items, created for elite clientele, rather than the normal generic items you normally find. If players want a special type of sword or staff created, this is where you go, though the prices will take a chunk out of the last treasure hoard you just looted. The First Bank of Alphatia is the largest financial institution in all of Alphatia, backed up by the Imperial government. It is primarily used by the wealthiest nobles and the largest companies. It is a business bank rather than dealing with common folk. Here you can exchange large sums of gold for letters of credit or store them in an account to keep them safe. Alphatia hasn't embraced small letters of credit like Darrican has, instead keeping the amounts involved in the 10-digit range. The minimum requirement to open an account is more than most commoners will ever earn, ensuring that the rabble will never step foot inside this bank. The Vault of Pride is a gigantic museum that showcases the glories of the Alphatian Empire, going back to their original homeworld. Included are relics of old Alphatia, including one of the last skyships used to flee their world before arriving in Mystara. Statues of every emperor dating back to the first in old Alphatia are displayed with a biography attached. There are exhibits showcasing the glory of the Alphatian Empire, showing every land that has been conquered by the Alphatians, with a large section on the conquest of Thyatis. Needless to say, there's a strong bit of bias in the exhibits and the history. The one thing visitors to Sundsvall will notice who are not used to Alphatian culture is the large number of slaves. A good chunk of the city's population are used for all sorts of manual labor jobs. From scrubbing the streets clean in the middle of the night to unloading cargoes at the docks, slaves are a necessary part of Sundsvall's infrastructure. Escaping is pointless. Not only can they be traced by magic, but the central location of Sundsvall means they have nowhere to go. To the Alphatians, this is a normal part of life, but to nations where slavery doesn't exist, it can be a bit of a culture shock. Next week is something I've been working on for a while as part of my attempts to fix some of the holes in the Mystaran lore, and that is, what is the power of the Archfey compared to what the Immortals can do? They're supposed to be equal to each other in terms of power, but what do those powers entail? So come back next week to find out what makes Oberon different from Ixion. Also check out Obsidian Portal's Mystara content for their version of the setting. But until then, remember, if everything is magical, then nothing is.